Welcome to the very first episode of This is Parkinson's podcast. It's a project I started because when I was first diagnosed with Parkinson's, no one ever asked me, do you want to talk to another Parkinson's patient? And I wish that they would have given me that opportunity. And so I'm trying to create a place where we're having conversations. And I thought we should probably start with all of the why and how we got here. And I'm with my partner, Bob Sullivan, and we're talking about how we got here. And you're also going to hear from my sister, Kris, and her perspective of getting that family diagnosis. And I hope you enjoy the conversation. This is Parkinson's, our first ever podcast. I'm Lisa Volenec.
And I'm Bob Sullivan.
And moving forward, when we are doing these, I'm going to be doing the interviewing. But today, for our first ever, we decided to switch it up and give you the lead role.
We're going to switch it up. Yeah. And the reason why is because, first of all, if you're watching, thank you. But also because it's a chance for Lisa and I to really explain how we got here. And which is important to know as it relates to what we're trying to do with our nonprofit, because it's personal. It's very personal. The journey for Lisa and I started many years ago. I've worked in television, as you know, that's where you and I met. And I know how pressure-filled it is. And yeah. I was a general manager, and that is the ultimate, it's like the thermometer. You're living in red.
Right.
You're not down here. Your thermometer is peaked from the time you walk in the door. You came to me and said, there's something I need to tell you. And I said, okay. And you said, and no one knows this other than maybe at that time, one or two people. Mm-hmm. And you said, I have Parkinson's.
Right.
My first thought was, okay, what does that mean? Because I didn't know anything about Parkinson's other than I heard it's a disease and that's about it.
Right.
And you were very concerned right out of the gate of, I've been diagnosed with this. I'm dealing with it the best I can, but I just need to keep this with us because I don't want anyone to know.
Right.
And the main reason was because mostly, I think, because of your employment status.
Right.
And you were terrified that if anybody found out that you had a neurological disease, that you'd be out, you'd be fired.
I don't know that I was so afraid that I would be fired. I was afraid that I wouldn't succeed. And it's not because I don't think that they didn't believe in my ability, but I didn't even know what Parkinson's meant, what that was going to mean for me, in a professional, personal, anything, because again, I didn't really look at it that closely. I was like, okay, I just got to hide everything and just go on with life and pretend that it doesn't exist because I'm a single woman and I wanted to climb a corporate ladder. And I didn't want an incurable neurological brain disorder to get in the way of my success. Yeah. I wouldn't fault anybody necessarily for questioning whether I could do the job because you just don't know what the disease has in store for somebody. I still don't necessarily. Yeah. Every day is a different set of potential obstacles, challenges, or symptoms. And, as we've talked and laughed about it, it's a very common thing for people to go in front of the camera to selling advertising. No one ever does it.
Right.
I felt like I had more to prove because I was given a chance to do advertising sales and tell the story of clients and, help them with their success. And so I wasn't going to let anything jeopardize that opportunity of success.
I would tell people this story, but it had nothing to do with Parkinson's. I always had this fear in my career that you had to stay relevant. Like if I wasn't making a difference, if I wasn't learning, if I wasn't leading, I had this internal fire to reinvent myself. And I remember telling people that, and the example I would give was you. It was always, I said, let me tell you a story about this friend of mine. She literally walked away from a career in on-camera journalism, reporting everything. You did everything. Monty Python. Now for something completely different, I'm going to go into sales. One word came to mind, courage. It took a lot of courage to do. So now looking back on it and all those years, because you continued to challenge yourself to do more. You went to local sales management. Mm-hmm. Then you went into corporate sales management, eventually becoming a general manager at the CBS affiliate in Omaha.
Right.
But now when I look back on it, I go, holy cow, she was doing all that when she had Parkinson's. But I never put those two together.
Right.
I always thought she had courage to keep reinventing herself. But now I have so much more respect for you that you were doing it while you were not battling, but living with this disease.
And hiding it.
Right.
And hiding it truly is almost harder than having it, because it's also, again, and as we've talked about in the past too, it's carrying around secrets is a bag of crap that nobody wants to carry around it. But yet, if I had been upfront and honest, I don't know that I would have gotten the promotions or made the success or climbed the ladder that I wanted to climb and gotten to where I had wanted to be. And I didn't let Parkinson's slow me down. I think there's times it probably was certainly trying to, but I had to keep going and I had to keep moving ahead because, again, I was a single woman and trying to build a career.
So go back now to when you first learned and in those early years, because you're now working with Parkinson's patients who are grappling with the diagnosis. How is it for you knowing that I have this disease, but I'm not telling anyone, but I've got to learn to live with it? And what does that mean?
That's a great question. And I don't know that I did it well because I kind of put it in a box, compartmentalized and put it in a box and put it away. And I gave it attention when I found time to give it attention. And I didn't want to make a lot of time to give the attention to it. And then just as you know, recently, last year, I stepped away from my career in television, kind of devoting all of my energy to our nonprofit and to taking care of my health. And it's the first time that I really grieved because I never really gave it the space that it deserved to understand I have an incurable neurological brain disorder that's fighting me every single day to get stronger. Yeah. I think Matthew Perry made the comparison with his addiction. It's doing one-arm push-ups out the door, waiting for you every day. And that's kind of how I feel like Parkinson's is. And unless I am actively fighting it, it's waiting for me. And it's waiting to come barreling at me. Last year, 2025 was a big year because I had to walk away, put my health first, become the CEO of my own health, and grieve a career that I loved, and grieve a disease and a diagnosis that I never gave the proper attention to when it happened and when the diagnosis came in 2014.
Do you think that grieving process, by delaying it, has been harder, if you will?
Yeah, I think so. Because, I've met so many great patients and I see what it has done and how a community is so important. And I didn't want to look and talk to another Parkinson's patients because that was also even admitting that I was in the same shoes. And I didn't want to because I was going to beat it. I was going to be different. I say I was going to be the Parkinson's prom queen. This isn't going to get me. I'm going to wear the tiara and I'm going to be fine. And I'm far from that. But it's okay. And I also wonder if I would have embraced it differently. Maybe I wouldn't have had the successes in my career, but maybe I would have felt stronger and healthier all along. My sister had made a comment. She goes, I don't even know if you could work. And because they saw me slowing down. And I think it's just I ignored my body for so long because it was career focused, 90 miles an hour every single day. Get up, make the donuts, go home, that kind of thing at such a fast pace that I never stopped to pay attention to what is happening with my body.
Yeah. Going back to, you've been diagnosed, you're working these incredibly stressful jobs, you're managing people all over the country. And again, you're keeping this quiet.
Right.
How did you find your outlets on those times where you said, I got to take care of my body, or I got to lean into, because you've always said to me, you have to live with Parkinson's.
Right.
How did you find those avenues? Who did you reach out to?
Someone had told me years ago about this big and loud exercise program. So I found a physical therapist who taught that. So I said, I'm going to just go do that. And one day he got out boxing gloves and I'm like, what in the world? I don't know how to box. What do you? And so I fell in love with boxing. And then there were a lot of his patients that were much older than I. And I also felt guilty going there because I'd go to work out and I'd jump on a treadmill for 20 minutes and run before I'd even work out with them. And I don't know if these patients had Parkinson's. We never talked about it or anything. But I kind of started to feel guilty, and because I could do so much more than them. So I went and found some boxing trainers here in Phoenix, and I started working out with them. And that was the best shape I was ever in. And I mean, I felt better than even before my diagnosis. And then, of course, COVID shut everything down, and it kind of, did a number on me then. And so COVID, not taking care of myself in that aspect. And then during all of that is when I decided to go, okay, I'm going to go to Omaha, Nebraska and be the general manager of the CBS affiliate. And so everything kind of, came to a crossroads in Omaha.
I remember you came to me and you said, I got to talk to you. I've got this opportunity to go to Omaha, my hometown, my station I used to work at, and be the general manager. What do you think I should do? And it was the first time where I thought of your health. And I thought, don't do this. And I was worried for you from that standpoint, just because I had learned more about Parkinson's and stress and what it can do for you. But off you went.
I did.
And you did it.
I did. And I don't have regrets. I loved the time in the role. I loved the people I got to work with. The industry's changed a lot, and it's continually, it's like, if you're going to be in TV, buckle in, because it's going to be a bumpy ride out from here on out. Right before I stepped away, I had to terminate someone, just because there's downsizing and stuff. That I was always in downsizing mode from the day I stepped into that station. But I had to do it, and it was over Zoom. It was not my choosing. It was just a corporate cut, and we had to do it. And I was so upset. And I remember standing up after we hung up the call, because I felt so bad. He had just, the week before, his daughter just got married. And I just felt like it was just an awful thing. And he handled it better than I did, delivering the news. And I stood up and I fell. And I knew when I had fallen that I was never going to walk in that door again. And, and my doctors and I had some very serious discussions for long periods of time about the stress and such. Yeah. A few days later after that, I'm like, I'm done. And they're like, thank God. Because, they could see the progression and what the stress was doing to me. And, and as with many Parkinson's patients, you see your doctors, you're like, I'm fine, but they can see it in your walk and your gait, your stiffness, the rigidity. They can see it in ways that and I would always try to be on, the tally lights on. I'm going to show up and I'm going to be, again, the prom queen. You can't cover those things up. It was October that I stepped away, and it's been a kind of a hard transition, but I know it's in the best interest of me.
Before you got to the tipping point of that situation, you went into Mayo to see your doctors, and you decided with them to do DBS.
Yeah.
I'm having brain surgery, and then I got to go back to work.
I went back to work 6 weeks after 2 brain surgeries in 2024. And my neurologist had been talking to me about it for a couple of years. And I was just like, la, 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 la. I don't want to hear about it, because to me, it was deep brain stimulation. And the way I viewed it was, you're just trying to kickstart something that's dead. And it made no sense. I'm like, that's a last resort. And then I started kind of doing a little bit more homework and realizing and seeing the before and after, again, but with patients a lot older than I was. And then when I saw the before and after, there was one point in 2024, the early 2024, I said, I'm going, let's do it. And then they're like, well, hold on, we got to do all we got to make sure that you're a candidate. Yeah. And when they deemed me healthy enough to proceed, I couldn't get on that surgery schedule fast enough. And I had no fear, which sounds crazy because you're having brain surgery. And I'm like, get it in, get it over with. I want to move on with my life. And I thought life was going to be phenomenal after that. And it has been. I went from taking over 20 medications a day to 3 pills a day. I sleep wonderful. It's really had a great impact on my tremors and a lot of the symptoms. But it's not a cure, and it's not going to slow the progression. Because, I thought, again, okay, here's going to be my quick fix. I'm just, initially I was just going to take the medication to hide it. Then I'm going to get DBS to hide it even more. And then it was like, how do you hide brain surgery? And then, of course, it just so happened I was at a certain event with a certain someone, and I wasn't really telling people publicly still, even though I had had brain surgery. And I went to the Michael J. Fox Gala as a guest of Stevie Nicks. And lo and behold, we're walking the red carpet. She goes, you're going to walk with me. And I'm like, of course. Well, who would want to talk to me? And of course, then we're talking to Entertainment Tonight. And she's like, Lisa, you should tell them. And I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, oh God, we're really doing this. And I was like, well, what the hell?
You're lightly touching on Stevie's been a longtime friend of you and your sister.
Yeah.
She's been a champion of yours. And she said, you're coming to this dinner with me. I'm going to sing. And then all of a sudden you're on the red carpet, and it was time to, lack of a better term, come out.
Right. It was funny because...
Was it terrifying? Was it...
Well, I didn't really know what was happening, because it was funny because the red carpet is a very short piece of
carpet.
Yes, it is. And Richard Kind, who starred with Michael on Spin City, and he's very funny. And he was standing, and of course, Stevie walks into a room. And I was with Stevie's assistant, and we're standing there because Stevie was on with Michael and his family taking pictures. And Richard Kind is standing right next to me. He goes, "Here, hold this." And it's his wine. And then Stevie comes and gets me, and he's like, "Oh my God, who is it?"
And you said, "Here, hold this."
You can have this back now because I got to go walk with this. And I just thought it was going to be, honestly, just for pictures. She starts doing some press, and then she's just like, "Well, this is my friend Lisa who has Parkinson's. This is why I'm here." And then she's just like, "And you should tell them." And I'm just like, "Well, I guess I will." And so that's where it all kind of came out.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did it feel after you did that?
It was kind of overwhelming because I'm like, "Oh my God, did that just happen?"
Yeah, there's like a time to come out. It's not on a red carpet in New York and Michael J. Fox standing there,
Right.
Stevie Nicks.
Right.
I was kind of thinking maybe more like just telling some friends in a living room.
Well, or maybe a social media post to my
Yeah.
immediate friends and family and it's like, no. And then I did have to call my boss
Oh, by the way.
in case it comes up, because we run Entertainment Tonight. There's a chance I could be on that. And so it was like no turning back now. And I wonder again, if I had done that 10 years before, would I feel any differently? And I don't know. And
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter anymore.
Once that happened, I could see a change in you where you started thinking, I need to start winding down because it was really having an effect. The stress was having an effect on you.
Well, in 24, let's not forget, I'm managing not only the station, I'm managing all the sales, and
Right.
It was political, and so that is in another level of insanity, and the amount of pressure to achieve revenue goals, and making sure that your FCC files are correct, and all these things that no one really knows
Right.
about and such. But there's a whole other level of stress when you have an election year and you're managing political ads on your station as well. And it was just like once that was done, I think I kind of knew in my heart I was done as well.
So then the conversations between you and I were, when one door closes, one opens, but I don't have a door to open. What the hell am I going to do?
Yeah,
And we went out, I think, and had a drink one night,
we did.
and you were upset. And I just remember thinking, we both came out of storytelling.
Yeah,
I wasn't a storyteller per se, but I managed all the systems and people that told stories as a news director and general manager and whatnot. But I thought to myself, you're a storyteller, and you just told your story. And you talked a lot over the period of time before that about how fearful people are when they first diagnosed. It's like, oh my God, it's like a lightning bolt hits you. It's like, what do I do? Who do I
Right.
tell? And most people do what you did.
yeah.
They just go inward and don't talk about it. And we started there, I think, where I said,
We did.
what about you telling people about their story, like
Well,
you told your story?
What we always started with was me in hysteria, thinking, what am I going to do next? Which I have done multiple times in my career and had those conversations
Right.
with you.
We all do.
And I was like, if I leave my general manager job, I was going to be the big city girl coming home to save local news, reunite with my high school boyfriend, and save Christmas. And none of those things happen like they
It's
do
a
on the
Hallmark
Hallmark Yes.
movie.
And so I'm like, what am I going to do? Because I just felt like I wasn't really ready financially to retire. So as I would always say to you, I'm going to be living in a studio apartment, government studio apartment with black mold. And you're just like, you're not either. And that's when you said, Lisa, you're a storyteller, and you just told your
Yeah.
story. And this is where it all kind of came to fruition. And this idea of this is Parkinson's, because we've heard many people say is if you've met one person with Parkinson's, you've met one person, because symptoms and the disease affect so many people so differently. And the more I have embraced the community and the people, I have met so many amazing people who have such incredible stories to tell. And we have to give a voice to those folks and find the support and the solutions that we are often left to navigate and find on our own.
So we decided, hey, let's start a band. We decided to start a nonprofit. But the thing I'm very comfortable with so far is the mission, the focus is real. We're not here for any other reason than what the nonprofit is set up to do, and that is to help others.
Right.
And we're finding our way in how we can do that. Well, obviously, we're starting off with giving voice, not just to the patient, but to the everyone that is affected by someone with Parkinson's.
Right.
The loved ones, the caregivers, the doctors, the nurses, the researchers,
Right.
the companies trying to find, like Michael J. Fox Foundation, trying to find the cure, but whether it's pharma or it's, Mayo or it's who knows who else. But to give voices and faces, put faces to that. And our initial response so far has been nothing but really positive.
I mean, there's so many people that have seen the stories, and so many people go, there's nobody doing anything like this. This is amazing because, again, especially if you're that person, that patient who, is struggling with depression, or you're that patient that is, has this generational kind of history of Parkinson's and their fear of what their future is going to look like, what their kids are afraid of, and those kinds of things. Everyone's story is so different and so unique and so critical to be told in order to find a cure, to keep the research going, and to do all of the things that the people before us have been working, tirelessly, their efforts to find a cure or even disease modifying treatments, and to keep that going, because it's the patients, their families, their loved ones, like you saying, the researchers, the doctors, pharma, everybody. It's just such a huge ripple effect, and we're throwing that pebble in the water to see how far we can go.
That's a good way to put it. We really believe that our storytelling opens the doors, and it has. And maybe it's because you buy a white car and then all you see is a white car after that. But ever since I started this project, there hasn't been a single person, I swear to God, that hasn't said, oh, my uncle died of that,
Right.
or my mom, or my brother. We had a guy who just donated money to us.
Right.
And I didn't know this. Maybe you did. He said, my brother's been battling Parkinson's for many, many years.
Right.
So we want to give a voice to these people and have them come forward and tell their story, because then that can generate interest in the organization. That can generate revenue. What we want to do with the revenue is really simple. We want to give it back to those that are in need, whether it's funding people that don't have money to go to boxing classes, or funding people that don't have money to go to occupational therapy.
There's different wellness programs
Right.
that insurance won't cover that are, kind of, which I've always had to pay out of pocket, but have been tremendously beneficial. And that is that added layer. And there, you'll see this with some of the stories that I've already been doing. And there's one particular friend of mine, I've got him into boxing now. The difference that it's made in just a few short weeks in his everyday life has just been phenomenal. The thing about it, too, that I think is really important, Bob, is that people think Parkinson's, you shake a little. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And there's what is called the iceberg effect. And the things that you cannot see below the surface are terrifying. There's so many things even I'm still learning about the illness. And there's people who have Parkinson's that will never have a tremor in their life. And, they're struggling terribly. And so it's also just removing some of the stigma and educating people on what this illness really does and the impact it has on people's lives, and the fact that the numbers are expected to double by 2030 in the number of cases. And it's so that in of itself is terrifying. And there's not even enough doctors to treat all the people who are going to be, all the diagnoses that are heading our way.
There's no cure.
No.
I mean, you live with Parkinson's. You don't die from Parkinson's.
Right.
You die with Parkinson's.
Correct.
And so our goal is to really try to help those people that have been quiet, or even the people that haven't been necessarily quiet. But, I know you don't want to talk too much about it, but you already are helping somebody that can't afford DBS, and they live in rural part of a state.
Right.
But you've lined them up with Mayo, and they're coming down to try to get DBS.
Try to get DBS, but they're also trying a non-invasive new that I don't even know about. They just got a call or a text when I was coming out to Arizona that they're going to try a new gene therapy first. And he's still on, the list for DBS, but he and his wife are coming, I believe, in about a week and a half to get enrolled in this gene therapy that they have had. They're very, very excited about. I know nothing about it, so I'm excited to take that journey with them. I have never met them in person, but we've been talking for a year because he could not get care in Nebraska.
Yeah.
And I said to my doctors here, I said, we got a problem.
Yeah.
And they said, we'll get him in. And so.
And then another example is you learned about somebody in Omaha. You cold called him, reached out to him. He decided to meet you, and he doesn't talk about it. But one of the first things he said to you when you said to him, when you were diagnosed, what was your reaction? And he said,
he had his plan. He knew how he wanted to end his life, because the thought of being a burden And I get emotional, talk about the thought of being a burden to his own family was more than he could take. But he's boxing.
I was just going to say, and now because of Tip,
Yeah.
i.e. Lisa, coming into his life, he's not thinking about that anymore.
No.
He's boxing.
There's still days he and we both talk, and he still has challenges because there's sometimes, and as you've seen with me, you know, we'll have a meeting or something, and my nervous system gets out of whack, and I'm just like, I got to go. I can't, this is all I can do. Again, what I've said to you before, what is the solution for the 363 other days of the year that you're not in front of your neurologist? If you even get in front of your neurologist, it's usually twice a year if you're lucky, and you get, so it's 2 hours out of a year. How do you live with it the other days of the year? And how do you get through and get by? And so hopefully it's getting by with a little help from our friends. And TIP, which is our acronym for this, is Parkinson's, which we didn't explain. So,
right. And for us, it's about stories that start by telling the stories. Then we're able to offer them support and solutions.
Right.
Pretty simple concept, but so far we're pretty excited about where this is going to go.
Right.
I don't know who you turned to first when you knew about this, but I know one of the people you turned to very early on is your sister.
Yeah.
You guys are very close. You're only a couple of years apart.
14 months.
I'm sorry.
We're Irish twins, kind of.
But what we want to do in this next segment is bring Kris on and talk about what it was like for her as your family partner and your life partner to know about all this and find out about this and how she's dealing with it.
Okay.
So we'll do that. We'll do the magic of an edit. And we're back just like that. We were talking, obviously, before the break that it was hard for you when you were first diagnosed to tell anyone. But one of the first people you told was Kris. Kris Volenec is your sister.
Right. And
joins us. So talk a little bit about that, you guys.
I was diagnosed by a doctor that I refused to accept that. I mean, she did, it felt like in 5 minutes, did all these tests and said, you have early onset Parkinson's and it's going to progress quickly. And I'm like, and so I told no one. And then I got an appointment at the Mayo Clinic, and when, met with my doctor, and my sister and my mom were in Omaha and I was out here, and it was a very, very hot day in September. And I remember I was just so grateful for the sun to be burning my skin because a bomb just was dropped in my lap, and it's called Parkinson's, and I don't know what to do with it. And my sister she was on her way to Omaha, I think for a football game. And you called me when you landed, and I do not recall the conversation. I remember you being emotional.
Yeah, well, for sure. And Mom was too, because Mom had, was picking me up at the airport. And, I think the things that you think about are, like you mentioned, what does this mean? Because we didn't have anybody in our family that had the disease. I wasn't familiar with it except for Michael J. Fox. And the other part that was hard, that was Lisa was 1,300 miles away, and, her immediate family was in Omaha. So, your first thought is like, what can we do? What are next steps? We need more information. I want to learn about this. But, it was hard because we weren't together. But I think in the ensuing, weeks and months and years, of course, you learn mostly through the patient what they need. And you take your cues from the person affected by Parkinson's. And so sometimes that's leave me alone. And sometimes it's listening to their struggles and what they're going through and what they're feeling. If somebody breaks a bone, you have a reference for what that feels like. Or if you have a wisdom tooth pulled. I have no idea what Parkinson's feels like. And that's the hard part about the empathy, is because I don't know what it feels like to feel stiff. I know we were on a trip that summer in San Diego with a group of friends over the 4th of July. And we were on this sort of walking tour, and Lisa had lagged way behind the group. And I remember turning around thinking, what are you doing? She goes, I can't walk. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, you can't walk? You're young, you're healthy. I thought, well, maybe she had a cramp. And she told me then she had noticed that her arm wasn't swinging either, which is sort of a telltale sign of that early diagnosis as well. And I thought, well, of course you think it's a neurological thing, but maybe it's a pinched nerve. It's a, something innocuous. You don't immediately go to Parkinson's, especially when somebody's young, healthy, active, successful in her career. I thought there's no way that's what it is.
Yeah.
And when she did call and say, yep, I got the second opinion from the Mayo Clinic, we were devastated mostly because we didn't understand what that meant and what we were in for. As the years went on, as Lisa compartmentalized it, we sort of just went on like, whoa, she's getting promoted, she's traveling, she's doing this.
Yeah.
I guess it's not hard, or she made it very easy for us, I should say. And I was telling someone recently that, when she decided to give up her career and leave the work that she was so successful in, and we also, Bob, you mentioned, I was in awe of what she was able to accomplish. I was working in the same industry and just sort of sat back and was like, wow, I've never seen somebody do it like that worked in all of those departments with that kind of success. So when she walked away, for us as family members too, that was sort of the demarcation of, oh yeah, Lisa has Parkinson's. And now we have to deal with it as a family, because it's a new era. It's not Lisa's just going to work as if nothing's wrong. That was a shield and sort of a veneer for the family too, which was awesome because we all just got to go on and not think about it. And now, when she talked about her grief last year, I felt it too, because I was very sad to see her give up something that she was so talented at and had made such inroads and such impact. To see her give that up was heartbreaking. But, as always, I would do anything for my sister, and, I will continue to be supportive. I had mentioned to, I think, your producer when she was asking me about this process, and she said, what is your biggest fear for Lisa? And I said, there are many. And as you've had years of learning more and seeing the progression of the disease, you become another sort of resource for what's happening and a witness to it. And it's very easy to get caught up in the future, the unknowns. But what I told her and what I cling to now is the prescription for this disease, for its patients and the caregivers, is to stay in the present. That's the best thing that you can do, because none of us know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen with my health any more than Lisa really does. She has maybe a bigger clue because of this diagnosis, but we're all fragile human beings. So to stay in the present, live in today, and take what today gives you, and have gratitude with that. That's a big thing with Michael J. Fox is you have to live with gratitude and find things to be grateful for. And that's true of people who don't have Parkinson's, right? That's just a great sort of way to live. So yes, it's scary to start over. Yes, it's scary to face an unknown, but it's also exciting because I don't know anybody, and I've said this over and over, I don't know anybody who's more courageous than my sister. She is tough as nails. She's done things I would never have the courage to do. Never. I just sat back and went, wow, good for you.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think this is another example of that.
Yeah. Before you came on, I looked at her career like you did, and you go, wow, she's getting promoted again. Wow, she got this. Wow, she got this. She just kept moving up the ladder. And then it didn't take me until now that she's leaving the industry, or she's left the industry, to go, and she did all that with Parkinson's. Yeah. So I think that it's a message to people, right? That we're trying to work with in the future on this is you can live with it.
You can.
Talk a little bit about what Kris talked about as a family member. She said you learn, so some days you just leave you alone. Some days you just listen. What's that like from your perspective back to whether it's Kris or your mom or your stepdad or?
You have to try to remember it's your family, to give them grace, because I know that at the heart of their intent is always love, right? You know, and it's funny because without fail, when I will say, gosh, I'm really stiff today, my mom, I've got Tylenol. I mean, she's got Tylenol for everything. And it's like, and God bless her, the Tylenol's not going to touch the Parkinson's, you know, stiffness and rigidity. And I love her because, you know, when she would go to see my doctor, she'd have newspaper clippings of articles about Parkinson's to give to my neurologist going, I don't know if you've seen this, you know, and it's just, you have to recognize that that is their way of love.
Right.
You also have to remember that Kris and I, when I had my Parkinson's diagnosis, our father was still alive. And we had been taking care of our father, who'd been in a nursing home since 1990. You know, he had a stroke and a brain aneurysm.
At a young age.
We were navigating being caretakers of our father. And then I come home and say, oh, and guess what? I have Parkinson's. A friend said to me not that long ago, and Kris did a great job of saying it, is getting the cues. Sometimes you just have to meet them where they are for the day. And if that means, you know, you can tell when they're shutting down or retreating because it's just too much.
Yeah.
You know, and Kris and my mom have been really good, and especially as of late. And I think because, again, the changes that I made in 2025. And so this
new chapter you moved into.
And that's when I've really recognized the love and support that I have from my family.
It's really interesting what you said, Kris, because she's so successful in her career. And she was doing this and doing that and flying here and going to this meeting and going to general manager meetings, that it wasn't a false sense of, oh, she's fine.
Right.
But it gave you solace to know that she was living with it as well as she was with her career.
Yeah. And, you know, she had always, even before she was diagnosed, Lisa did the work of 3 people in any job she did. That's just her nature. It's in her DNA. What was amazing is, like you mentioned, she did all that with Parkinson's. I know I couldn't have done what she did in her career without Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just recognize she's so talented. You know, we did worry. We're like, oh, is she doing too much? Should she be doing that? And she always proved us wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, worrying didn't really, you know, help her at all. We tried not to burden her with our concerns, but we just sort of sat back and watched her go. I'm glad she had that success, and I'm glad she made those decisions. And, you know, we were always there to support whatever she did. So it didn't matter if I thought she should go to Omaha or not go to Omaha. That wasn't my role. My role was to be supportive of whatever she decided.
Yeah, I've always thought, if I was ever diagnosed like you were, I think I'd roll up, you know, like one of those sea urchins and just go, I'm good. Just because I would go into I'd be so introverted and introspective about what does this mean for me? But you had to continue. You said, I just got to go back to work. I got to get up in the morning. I got to go back to work. I got to do my job.
Yeah. And, you know, the interesting thing too is I'm grateful for the diagnosis when it came in my life, because my neurologist, I asked him one time, I said, how long do you think I've had this? And he's like, probably 20 years, which would have put me in my 20s, like Michael J. Fox. And I think about a time when my sister and my mom and I were in New York. We had come out of a store. I said, I can't walk. And my feet froze up. And I was telling my neurologist about this years later. He goes, yeah, that was Parkinson's. And there was another time I could think of, and I thought it was because I wore heels the day before or some, you know, never in a million years would I have thought that it was Parkinson's. But I also think if I would have been diagnosed that young, I don't think I would have had the mental maturity to handle it. And so
interesting.
I'm grateful that it didn't come till later.
Because what's it called when it's early onset?
It's early onset Parkinson's when you're diagnosed before you're the age of 50.
Mm-hmm.
My neurologist has surmised that I probably had it in my 20s. So, but I also was very active and worked out. And so that kept it at bay, because that's the only thing that can potentially slow progression of Parkinson's is exercise, which is why we're so invested in trying to help people get some exercise and get into some of these programs. I've probably had it since my 20s.
Wow.
And, you know, but again, not getting that diagnosis till later in life, I think that was God's way of getting me ready for it, for sure.
The role of family in this have you thought more about that since we've launched this, in terms of, you know, what a role of family or loved ones can play in a patient's life?
For us, we've always kind of been a tight-knit family. It's just been me and my mom and my sister for so long. My mom used to say it was just us against the world. We've all, had different struggles. And so you mature, like Lisa said, and you get stronger. And that bond really, I think, tightens and thickens. And I hope that, Lisa knows that that my mom and I will always be there for her no matter what. The role of the family is just to be supportive like you. I know I would have, if I got the diagnosis, I wouldn't have told a soul except for my mom and my sister.
Yeah.
That's just, we're fiercely independent to a fault. It's hard to ask for help, ask for support. We're not used to that. But I think I see, once she did tell people, I saw the reception she got, even from people, friends that we've known for 40 some years. Their response was incredible. And I think sometimes we underestimate people too. We're committed to Lisa. We're in this with her, whatever happens. And, 3 is better than 1.
Or maybe thousands with our growing tip family where
Right.
we want to grow. I mean, our whole focus, right, is to grow communities of support around this and offer each other solutions. People get diagnosed with a disease, and the first thing to do is go call Dr. Google up on the internet because they don't know who to talk to. They don't know what to do, and they keep it isolated or whatever. Our hope is that people will reach out and talk about it and then reach out to each other to support each other. And we really think the power of the story, of telling stories of people, is going to really give people not only inspiration, but also courage, maybe on their own to come out. This opening podcast, right, we're just trying to establish who we are. But on future podcasts, we want to bring in other family members or
Right.
other patients, or maybe a doctor, or maybe someone who's making inroads in finding a cure. Because we're all, I don't know much about Parkinson's, but I know a hell of a lot more today than I ever did. And, we're walking into this world where there's no cure. And that's different than, like you said, you break a leg, you said it. I'm not downplaying any other disease, but even with certain forms of cancer, there's cures.
Right.
With this, we're just walking into the dark and hoping that we're going to have our flashlights out to shine away.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that because my boss, when I told her I was stepping away, she was fighting breast cancer. And I said to her, I pray that you will beat cancer. And if anyone can, it's you, because you're strong. And her outlook looked very good. I go, I can't beat Parkinson's, but all I can do is fight it. Because yes, people get illnesses and stuff, and they can go into remission and things like this and put it behind them. Parkinson's is always going to be in front of me and waiting for me. So we better do it together.
Yeah. We all still believe human beings are there to really love and support. I know you want to do something at the end of each show, right?
Well,
to celebrate that?
Of course, because it's also like, we're talking about some things that can be pretty heavy. And with all of this, as my sister said, and as Michael J. Fox says, you have to have gratitude. So I want to end every show that we do, every episode, with tell me something good. And we've all got something that's good that has come of this. And
yeah, Kris mentioned it. She said there's good that's come of this.
Yeah.
With you being self-reflective.
So I want each of us to say one great thing that's come of this Parkinson's journey that I'm on, and have also grabbed you two by the collar and said, you're going with me. Bob, I'm going to start with you.
When you and I started talking about this, I thought, I'm at the point in my life where I hope I can leave some footprints in the sand that actually helped people. I know that through the work we're going to do is going to generate interest from the public, generate some dollars that can come in to help people in need. And that's what I'm really happy about.
The good for me as a sister and a family member is to see you focused on your health, because I think, for many years, and I'm guilty of it too in my own way, is to push aside things that I should be focused on personally, and putting all of our efforts into work and for the benefit of other people. I'm very happy to see you focused on this, because I think you have the power to help a lot of people, and your talents and gifts, while they were, utilized to a great degree in your previous career, I think they will grow and blossom for the benefit of a lot of other people with Parkinson's in this format. And I'm very excited about that.
Oh my God, my tremor's kicking in now. And I'm not kidding because I'm holding this down, but that's very kind of you to say. And I'm excited to hopefully, because you get Parkinson's. Am I going to use it for good or evil?
Yeah.
Let's figure out something great to do. And I just want to leave the world a little bit better than the way I came in. That's my hope.
Awesome. So
we're going to keep this going. So this is just episode 1.
Right.
And so
right.
the episodes more to come on This is Parkinson's. Well, I hope that you enjoyed episode 1. We've got so many great episodes coming up with other Parkinson's patients, caregivers, medical professionals, boxing coaches, all kinds of good stuff. So please stay tuned to This is Parkinson's.